We are now in the 6th month of June, which means inevitably it is time to start getting ready for Oscar season, which will be ramping up probably the end of this summer, really. And 2024 is looking really bad thus far. The box office is a disaster. Cannes did not have a ton of films that I think people were expecting to universally love. It was a very divisive Cannes Film Festival this year. And what are we to make of that? Because there's been other films that come out and kind of seem like they're underperforming. We have a list today that I'm going to be talking about because I did some predictions back in March that you guys love. So I wanted to talk about it again today and see where I went wrong, see what has stayed the same, and etc., etc. But with that said, let's start with Cannes Film Festival because that will address some of the movies that I talked about the last time. And let's just start with the biggest movie to come out of Cannes, I think it is safe to say, was Megalopolis, the newest Francis Ford Coppola movie. This is his first movie in well over 2 decades. And the reception of this movie was not great. This is, I think, to put it kindly, divisive, and to put it unkindly, to some, a bona fide disaster. I'm very excited for this movie, and the more divisive reaction actually made me even more anticipating to see it. I think it is safe to say that this movie fell off completely off my Oscar watch list in that term. And here's what I had originally for Megalopolis. I said that this movie could either sweep the Oscars or sweep the Razzies. The latter seems more likely at this moment. This film is divisive with a capital D. The only way I see Megalopolis going through is, one, it needs to find a distribution. That doesn't seem likely yet. I think someone will end up going for it, but it does need to find that semi-soon. The other thing that needs to go in its favor is when it does finally get released, it needs to become somewhat of a sensation. Like, this needs to overperform like crazy. This needs to find an audience, essentially, because I think this is probably more likely going to be a film that people love and appreciate from an old master, but most of the general audience is going to dismiss, and people are going to think Francis Ford Coppola is past his prime. That's where we are with Megalopolis right now. And with that all said, I am far more excited to see the movie because of that. Right now, the only Oscar prediction I still feel solid about for Megalopolis is Best Visual Effects. Let's talk about another movie that premiered at Cannes Film Festival. That is the newest Kevin Costner Western, Horizon: An American Saga, Chapter 1. And again, this is a movie that I'm getting weirdly more excited for. It sounds like Kevin Costner essentially just wanted to make a TV show, maybe to get back at the Yellowstone feud that's been going on with Taylor Sheridan. And he made what sounds like the first episode of a probably pretty solid TV show that leads to a lot of introduction. And Kevin Costner wants to make 4 of these movies. I just don't think this is going to be any form of a play with the Oscars anymore. I said that the Academy loves Kevin Costner. They obviously gave him Best Picture and Best Director, if I'm correct, for Dances with Wolves. I just don't see American Saga, Horizon and American Saga playing that same way. Now that I've also learned that this is very much not just a part 1 and a part 2, that this is a whole thing. And this really feels more like a televised event that just so happens to be a movie. The only case I could see this is if this becomes a huge financial just juggernaut and people go crazy for Horizon, and it really does just kickstart this new franchise led by Kevin Costner, a classic Hollywood movie star. That's where we can start talking and revisit Horizon. At this moment, I don't really see anything besides maybe a few below the line categories like cinematography and maybe costume design and production design. That's really the most that I see, and even those might be too much of a stretch. Let's talk about a few other films that premiered at Cannes Film Festival. We have probably the noisiest film that premiered outside of Megalopolis, at least in terms of critical praise, It is called Anora, which is directed by Sean Baker. He has previously directed the films The Florida Project and 2021's Red Rocket, both good films. And this film stars Mickey Madison. She plays a sex worker who becomes romantically involved with the son of an oligarch. It is described as an intense, dark comedy romance. It won the Palme d'Or, and it was bought out by Neon. If you look at their history, the Neon has won the Palme d'Or the past 5 years. Or I should say that the films that Neon has picked up has won the Palme d'Or. They've had Parasite in 2019. They had Triangle of Sadness in 2022. They had Anatomy of a Fall in this last year, 2023. And then the other film that won the Palme d'Or is the only one of these films that did not get nominated. That is Titan, which is probably just a step too far for the Academy Awards themselves. But that's another movie that I just think Sean Baker is well respected. He's already has that love for the Florida Project. People loved Red Rocket. This just feels he's got the palm. It's been the past 3 out of 4. Neon's distributing it. It just kind of feels like Neon's going to be pushing a lot for this movie. And it does sound kind of more like a dark but fun crowd pleaser. And maybe that could kind of fall in that Banshees of Inisherin. So look out for that when that premieres this fall. How many more of these Cannes films do I talk about before I jump over back to some of my earlier predictions? Let's go with probably the movie that is going to divide people the most. And people are going to hate this movie. Get ready for some of the worst online chatter and discourse you've seen in a movie since Civil War. If you want to see how bad the Civil War discourse got, go look at my YouTube comments for my Civil War review. Well, we're getting back into the politics in an election year. I'm not talking Joker Folie à Deux. I'm talking The Apprentice, which is a biography film about Donald J. Trump. President Donald J. Trump up for re-election this year. Sebastian Stan plays him. This also features supporting performances from Jeremy Strong playing, I believe his name is Roy Cohen, who was an associate with Don's father, Donald Trump, father. And this also stars Maria Bakalova of Borat 2 fame as Ivana Trump, who I believe was Trump's first wife. I don't remember exactly. Maybe that's the father's wife. I don't remember exactly everyone in this cast, but Jeremy Strong, Maria Bakalova, Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump. Some very shocking scenes in this movie. This movie is plagued right now with the Trump lawsuits or lawyers, whatever you want to call whatever Trump's legal team is right now. They're trying to edit this film and get involved with this film because of some of the scenes that take place in this movie. From my understanding, there is a scene of sexual assault in it revolving around Donald J. Trump and a woman, which obviously very controversial. And some people were fairly impressed with this performance. And I'm hearing a lot of already early buzz for Sebastian Stan being nominated for this performance. Other people are kind of fed up with this movie and just kind of don't understand its existence and feels like it's a little bit of a easy target with no real substance in it and kind of just Hollywood being Hollywood in its political views without actually saying much about it. I'm fascinated by this movie. I am not ready for the discourse of this movie, and I'm also going to bring it. So I am curious to see this movie, even if this is not necessarily the movie that I want to see in an election year. This could go really interesting in an election year. This is a film that, like I said, this discourse is going to be a mess. The other big film that I want to talk about at the Cannes Film Festival, I should say, is a film called The Substance, which stars Demi Moore. It is described as a body horror, and I've also heard it's Moore's best work in decades, and that this is a pretty phenomenal performance. And if the Oscars can get past some of their horror and the weirdness of it, that Demi Moore, what she does, it's such a legacy and a way to celebrate a career that the Academy loves this kind of comeback story. Someone who hasn't been working as much and really just takes the mantle again. Based on what I've heard about this film, I don't know if it's going to be the Oscars cup of tea, but I would at least keep an eye on Demi Moore and her Oscar chances going forward. Let's now go back to my Oscars Watch 2025 power rankings and watch list. I think it is comfortable to say that one movie is at top right now and nothing's coming close to competing with it yet. And that does not mean that I think this movie is going to win Best Picture by any means. I think it does mean, though, that of the 10 slots, I think one film feels for sure, and that's Dune Part 2. I think we are looking at a few categories, and I've had this prediction since I saw the film, and with this year continuing to go the way it is and cannot having this like just plethora of movies that are probably going to get nominated, maybe only one or two, I think you're looking at for Dune Part 2, you're going to have a few big ones. You're going to have Best Picture. You're going to have Best Film Editing. You're going to have Best Visual Effects for sure. You're going to have Best Sound. You're going to have Best Costumes. You're going to have Best Adapted Screenplay. The reason I said adapted is because the first Dune film got the screenplay nomination. You're going to get score. You're going to get makeup and hairstyling. You're going to get cinematography. You're going to get production design. Those are all the 10 categories that the original Dune film got in 2021. On top of that, I think, yes, it is very easy to believe that Dune 2 will get all the nominations the first one did, and I think it's actually going to go over as well. I don't see Denis Villanueve missing out for Best Director, especially because most people considered him a snub the first time around. I think Denis Villeneuve is a lock for Best Director until I see otherwise. And finally, one on the bubble, if this is a weak actor year, get ready to see Timothée Chalamet in there. I think this is a possible chance for him to receive a nomination for Best Actor. That's what I'm feeling about Dune Part 2. I think 11 are guaranteed, maybe even 12. Let's talk about the next movie, which just premiered, a movie that I loved more than I expected to love it, just because I thought the first time around Mad Max Fury Road, I liked it. I thought it was slightly overrated. I don't feel the same way about Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, which is a movie that I genuinely loved. And here's the thing. Fury Road received 10 nominations and won 6. I don't think Furiosa is doing anywhere close to those numbers. You see, Fury Road got the picture nomination, it got director, it got cinematography, it got costume, it got editing, it got makeup and hairstyling, it got production, it got sound editing / mixing. Remember, those were 2 separate categories back then. And it got visuals. And if I'm correct, it won, which ones did it win? It won costuming, it won editing, it won makeup and hairstyling, it won production, it won both sound. And weirdly, it loses visual effects because this is the Ex Machina year. Here's what I think will happen this year for Furiosa. Because I don't think it's getting picture, I don't think it's getting director. I think the film has just... The fact that this film bombed financially is not a good indication for this film overachieving at the Academy Awards and lasting kind of a full year. What I do think it is in play for is, I think it is in play for costume. I think it is in play for editing. I do think it's in play for makeup and hairstyling. It's definitely in play for sound. And it's definitely in play for visual effects. It could be in play for cinematography. I think picture, director, and production design are just a step too far for Furiosa. But I do think it will get a few below the lines. I didn't have this one written down, but I'm just going to mention it real quick. Civil War, which is the new A24 film from Alex Garland. I think Best Sound should definitely be considered for that movie. I just want to throw that one out there. I don't think Civil War is going to get many other nominations, even though right now it's still my favorite movie of 2024 by a pretty easy mile. Let's talk about a few more that I feel even more confident in since I did this video in March. Inside Out 2, they showed the first 40 minutes of this film at CinemaCon back in April. Went out like gangbusters. I think this is a just sure thing lock for Best Animated Feature. And in a week year, maybe even look at it for Best Picture. We'll move on because no one's seen the film yet. Here's a few that we now have seen and that I'm feeling really bad about. I said Challengers could get the Zendaya nomination, and I also thought an original screenplay nomination was possible. I don't think Zendaya is getting the Best Actress nomination for Challengers. I think this movie, one, underperformed, And that's going to have trouble kind of keeping it. And really, when I said that this is going to be the defining make her a movie star, I certainly think this helps with the movie star case. But the fact that the movie star did not open this movie to huge, huge numbers, it did relatively well for the budget. But I just think this film, one, has been a little divisive with audiences. I know a lot of people who went to see this movie that thought it was pretty extremely overrated. I myself, when I reviewed this film, I had some complex thoughts about it, but I did overall generally like it. But with that said, I just don't see it getting actress right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but it does seem like the actress field is fairly getting strong this year. So I see Zendaya missing out here. The other one that I want this film to get nominated for, but it just doesn't feel like the Academy is this cool, and they always kind of forget a film's score like this. The score for Challengers should definitely be nominated. I just don't think it will, but I'm putting it in yellow because for my money's worth, this is the best score of the year pretty easily. Another film, I should have mentioned this during the Cannes wrap-up, Kind of Kindness, which did show at the Cannes Film Festival. This is the new Yorgos Lanthimos film starring his frequent collaborator, Emma Stone. It's an anthology film. I've already kind of expressed how I just don't think this movie is going to get huge buzz just due to that. Anthology films don't typically do well at the Oscars. Definitely one that sounds like it is far more divided. This is a 3-hour movie. Some people were kind of just, the length was too much for them. I'm hearing Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons really stand out in this movie. Maybe there's a chance where Jesse Plemons gets this Best Supporting Actor nomination. And I still think screenplay nomination is in play for this movie. Screenplay is always a category where they typically can reward artists like this without feeling need to give it a Best Director or Picture nomination. Until I see Kinds of Kindness, I'm hearing just a little bit too much divisive things. Another film that I feel even more strongly about is Sing Sing. Had its first trailer a few weeks ago. Coleman Domingo Best Actor nomination, maybe even win. I feel really good about this. And I now know people who have seen this film. They're saying great things about this performance. Let's talk about this one, which did get a bump despite the fact that no one's seen this movie. And I've been pretty bullish on this movie. I have pretty high hopes for this, and I just need this film to be good. Of all the films, it is Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which, again, they showed footage of this movie at CinemaCon, and it blew the roof off the place. Executives are talking about this movie, from my understanding, like it's the next big thing. Like they are getting out of the way. They are expecting Beetlejuice Beetlejuice to be a sensation. Michael Keaton is promoting the hell out of this movie, talking about how this is just, he's always wanted to make this movie. He's so glad to be back in this world. What they're doing is revolutionary. You're hearing these return to puppetry, visual effects. It's not this CGI fest. It's really Tim Burton finding his roots again as a director, working with Jenna Ortega, who he worked so well with on Wednesday. I'm just really starting to feel the buzz and growth for this movie, and I think this movie is going to overperform. With that, even if it's not the best movie, I think there's a few categories it is definitely in the running for. Makeup and hairstyling is obvious to me. I'd be shocked at this moment if this film does not get it, and if it doesn't, it's because this film's an utter train wreck, and even if it is an utter train wreck, I should say, this film is still probably getting that nomination. Same with costumes. And I think visual effects are certainly in play for this movie as well, especially if we are everything that we're hearing about this film being as good as it is and how much the visual tone of this film plays to that. I think we're looking at a really good chance for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice showing out. And let's just talk about a few of the films that I just don't have any changes on my opinion of, because nothing's really been discussed the past few months in regards to these films. I don't have any different change of feelings for Luca Guadagnino's Queer, which stars Daniel Craig, except that I still don't think that this movie's coming out this year. Gladiator 2, I heard the footage. Okay, maybe I should step back on Gladiator 2 because I do know this film I do know they showed footage of this film at CinemaCon. And I know people who went, they talked about this and they said Gladiator 2 was the event maybe of the entire week. People were jazzed for what Ridley Scott, Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington have in store for Gladiator 2. It sounds like the presentation done by, I believe it's Paramount is distributing this film. I've heard that this was all out for this, and people got really excited for it and the epicness of scope in it. I heard some people also say that it was hard to understand a full story, but from what they saw, that it's going to be a visual feast. And it is Ridley Scott really just going for broke in this movie, and that's exciting. So maybe Gladiator 2 I'm even more optimistic for, despite Ridley Scott's recent track record. The Outrun, which is the Saoirse Ronan movie, which someone got really mad at me in the comments last time because I had missed the few of Saoirse Ronan's earlier performances and I think nominations. Sorry about that. It still seems like she is a candidate for Best Actress. I just still don't know that many people who saw this film outside of Sundance. Got to see how this film performs. Joker Folie à Deux. Not the most excited for Joker 2. I'll be honest, the trailers just kind of keep bringing me back in. This movie does look beautiful in the trailer sense of the word. And maybe this is kind of the case again where it's a really good trailer, so-so movie. I'm still really optimistic that Lady Gaga gets a nomination for Harley Quinn, just like Joaquin Phoenix got it. She needs to stop talking about her COVID experiences on tour. That's not helping anything right now. Juror number 2, all I know is Clint Eastwood has a movie coming out, and there's been no other news on it. Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim, however you say that, it's a new animated film about the Lord of the Rings series, about one of their wars. Still feel like this could easily be a Best Animated Picture, but I don't think we've had really any word on it. And the one movie that we did get a full-length trailer for, it didn't go over the greatest, but I also think some people are really going to embrace this movie. I'm still confused. From my understanding, this movie is still a part 1 of part 2, and yet the trailer really did make me feel like it's actually just the full musical, which I will be seeing in August. It is Wicked, which I am still kind of optimistic for. I thought the trailer looked good. Full honesty, I thought the trailer looked pretty good, and it got me a little bit more excited to watch this movie. If this is still the case of it being a part 1 of 2, I'm very hesitant on this movie. If they did resolve this and this is just one movie now, and it's one like 2.5 hour movie, I think that is far better than splitting this into 2 2-hour movies, which again, I feel like the trailer makes it look like it is the definitive story. It is the Broadway play come to the big screen, and that there isn't a part 1 out of 2 divide, because it does feel like some of those scenes we saw is from the second act of Wicked. If not, then they gave away way too much in that trailer, because that is essentially the whole movie from beginning to end of the first act. So we'll see about that, but I really do feel like, who knows, I could be fully wrong, but Wicked, I'm still having just this weird feeling, and there's always a movie I'm wrong on. Wicked is easily that film that I could be wrong on, but I'm still keeping it up in the air as a possible nomination for Cynthia Erivo and get a few other ones. I think Best Visual Effects certainly are in play. Costuming feels for sure. Makeup and hairstyling, a lot of those below the lines feel in play for Wicked. That's my Oscar power rankings and thoughts after the Cannes Film Festival and where we look going into the second half of 2024. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe.